for having me on.
Sure. Anastasia, N.Rich, ABM, RevOps, you're the guru of it, right? So before we get started, um, let's tell the audience a bit about yourself, because when I had a conversation with you, I thought that this is going to be interesting because of the educational background that you have, like the anthropology of and the human behavior, which is, I believe, very interesting when it comes to ABM, right? At the end of the day, because it's all about human interactions. It's all about human psychology at the end of the day, and you are in a company that does everyday ABM. You see a lot of data, right? You see a lot of different approaches, but also you can put it in this anthropology mindset that you have. So that's for me brilliant. Tell us a bit about yourself. Tell us, how did you end up in ABM from anthropology? Because it's important for us to get these foundations before we dive into the operations and to the content.
Sure, I see where you're coming from. Let's establish that she's qualified.
No, I said let's establish that Anastasia is actually different, has a different approach to ABM because of her background in anthropology.
All right, well, let me give you the lowdown. So, my journey into RevOps, in Kiev. Then we moved into another ex-Soviet republic. So we lived in Kyrgyzstan my whole life. And you know this, Eastern European parents tell you that thou shalt pick a degree and it shall be an engineering degree or a maths degree.
Yeah.
And then you need to go into a job that matches that degree. So when when my 18-year-old self went, I want to do anthropology, my parents went, you what? And then obviously after that came the questions of what are you going to do afterwards? And I said I didn't know, and I did sales, and then I went into RevOps. But the reason I did anthropology, and the reason I still stand by that choice firmly, is because it's a study of human cultures and human societies and human behavior. Did I have this kind of foresight when I was doing it? Probably not. I think I was just like, oh, this is really interesting and a bit different. And as an 18-year-old, that's what you want. You want to be a little bit different. But yeah, in retrospect, it's really helped. Like the foundational thing in social anthropology is this idea of like cultural relativism, it's called. So it's the idea that human behavior is right in the context in which it's being performed. So when we see a tribe in Papua New Guinea doing something that's to us weird, we have to see it from their point of view, from their context. And actually, in RevOps, has helped a lot because you speak to salespeople all day that just do wild things, and without losing your mind, you have to go, okay, I can see why you did it, but can we just not? So it does help. It was a choice for a degree. I don't know if I would have made that choice again, but you know, it happened. I stand by my commitments to it. I will defend it. But you know, one of them.
Great. So let's jump into the presentation, and in the meanwhile, we will have questions, and let's make this more of a conversation. We can go back to anthropology analogies if it's needed, and also you guys who participate here on AirMeet, if you want to jump in and put questions, feel free. You will have the Q&A session at the end also. And if you are brave enough, you can come on camera. You can have this conversation with us. We want to make it as easygoing as possible. So, could we try to share the screen and share the presentation? Let's see if it's working. And let's jump into it.
Give me a second.
Yeah, no issues. If you're on a Mac, I hope that you will not get the security pop-up that you will need to restart your computer, because that happens sometimes.
Right.
Perfect.
Let me know. You can see it, right?
Yes, yes. The floor is
Fabulous.
yours.
Right. So
You can use the emojis for the nice reactions here.
please do, because it's really unsettling talking to a quiet space.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're talking about ABM today. That's what we're all gathered for. I think we're not going to go into like the technical setup of ABM and what each campaign should be, but I think we should start with a foundation, and we should start by addressing like the things that typically go wrong. I'll talk you guys through the 5 most common pitfalls that I've seen in ABM implementations. But also like the ways to steer yourself around them, away from the disaster when you're implementing ABM programs. I've got a real life case study for you. So it's been lovingly referred to N.Rich for N.Rich in-house. So it's effectively an ABM implementation at N.Rich. And I hope it's exciting for you guys, because I've been joking that, if it goes on any longer, I'm going to need some sort of occupational therapy. But if anything, at least you guys will learn something from what we're going through here. So webinars normally start with definitions, and I thought this would be a really nice place to start for me as well. So what the fuck is ABM? At its core, it's a demand generation approach where sales and marketing target ICP accounts together as a team. So it's a collaborative approach. Important to like double underline, make bold everything you want, just to emphasize this demand generation part of it, because we also have lead gen in marketing, right? And that's a very, very different thing. It's a very different way of going to market. So where demand generation is all about kind of brand awareness and driving prospect attention to yourself and positioning yourself as that market lead and the expert, and kind of acquiring accounts in that way. Lead gen is more of it's a much quicker jobby, right? So it's we've published something, we did a marketing thing, and we're now generating all of these leads, and sales can go and do the sales thing to them. So demand generation is a longer game, and it does require that very tight sales and marketing alignment. With the sales and marketing alignment, therein lies the scary thing about ABM, because in a typical setup within most organizations, and most orgs do lead generation rather than demand generation, right? So within most organizations, it's a case of marketing generates us a ton of like leads of varying quality. And then we have to sift through all of these leads, and we find the golden nuggets, and then we as sales convert them despite the marketing efforts to give us all this crap. With ABM and with demand generation, we're changing that too. We work together with marketing on our ICP accounts. We deliver the same message to the same prospect base, and conversion of this to booked meetings to revenue is very much a joint effort. Even when put like that, and we're forgetting for now, like all of the process that goes into it, all of the CRM setup, everything auxiliary to this, even this basic thing is scary to organizations, because ultimately this means that a lot has to change. And I mean, it's a change that can rock the foundations of a company, first of all, because, okay, let's talk about like even something as mundane, right, as commissions that salespeople receive. In a lot of the organizations that I've seen, salespeople will be paid different on inbound leads than on outbound leads when they convert them. So that will have to change. And there's a lot of these little like trickle down events that need to be tweaked, that needs to be consideration around them, just to change your mode of operation from normal state to ABM. So changing to true ABM is scary. And before I go into the pitfalls, I really want to talk about how we announce this change to our team, how we structure it, and how we manage it in a psychologically safe way, where I'm going to do my bit for humanity here. So people are generally scared of change. And it doesn't matter where it's a change of GTM strategy or like you've added an extra thing for them to do in their day-to-day. For some reason, and you know, we generally adapt pretty well to stuff, but for some reason, when it comes to work, there is more of a resistance. I don't know if it's because there is money involved or because it's like something that comes on autopilot for a lot of people, but work-related change is processed in a lot more painful way for a lot of people. And most organizations don't undertake any kind of change management, or they don't undertake any kind of steps to make sure that people feel safe within the changes that they're making. You will probably get a Slack message like, hey guys, by the way, by the way, we've changed everything. So yeah, enjoy. Some people will do like an email announcement. Some people will do like an all hands about it if you're lucky. But this whole textbook's written about change management and how to do it, and it really boggles the mind about why people don't do it right. So this is why I wanted to address it. Now, coming up is my favorite.
Plus one for the memes, by the way. Łukasz and others love it. So
well, this is the experience. Poor quality memes, good quality insights. I'm going to show you guys now like my favorite diagram of all time. And it gets cracked out so often in my conversations with people, I might as well just get it tattooed somewhere. So this is the Kubler-Ross change curve, and I've shown you it now, and you will never be able to unsee it in your life because it's so helpful. But effectively, when we implement any kind of change within an organization, people go through all of these different stages. So you know how there's like stages of grief? These are stages of change. So when we kick off any kind of change, everyone is in this left-hand side corner. So we've got the shock, denial, and anger overall. Why is this happening? Why was I not consulted about it? Everything's going to get worse. This is chaotic. This is a shit show. Why is this happening to me? Then over time, people move down into this kind of low depression point of, okay, this is happening. Nobody's listening. And I have resigned to this situation. And then slowly but surely, people push through into the sort of upper right-hand side. So we've got the experimentation, decision, and integration stages here. So they start thinking and experimenting with how they do their work. They start to kind of adopt the changes. And then finally, they emerge at this right-hand side of integration, and they're happy and they're performing again. And, everything is okay, or as okay as it can be. The purpose of change management is to take people through this left-hand side quicker, not let anyone down in depression stage, and not leave people behind, or too many people behind. Now, how does this apply to ABM? So we talked about how it's a big change. Naturally, where big changes happen, if you can identify the people who might get stuck in any of these particular stages, you can also identify how to help them. So I'll give you an example. So if I'm implementing ABM or any kind of different change at an organization, and I know that Romeo working here with me will get stuck in the anger and denial phase. Sorry, Romeo, I've just decided that you're that kind of guy. So Romeo is going to get stuck in the anger stage. The questions that I want to ask myself is, why is he there? Why will he get stuck there? And what could I have done before change even started to move him out of that anger phase quickly. Equally, if I know that Romeo is not actually an angry guy and he's actually going to race through all of this stuff and into the decision and integration phases, I can go, okay, so what would make Romeo excited about this stuff? Like, what is it about the project that would make him go, oh, okay, I'm going to do this? And based on the kind of the insights that I managed to gather about this this person, I can then say, okay, so I'm going to need to do X, Y, and Z to prepare. I'm going to need to do all of this tooling setup and everything like that. So you can see how just a little bit of preparation will make it a lot less painful in here. And the whole problem with ABM not being implemented properly, the whole problem of the chaos that people speak of when change is introduced, is because no consideration is being made to how people react to change. Very simple change. Please go consult to your team. Please go speak to them about what they will need, and actually make it like a crowdsourced solution when it comes to ABM, because it's a massive change, and if you don't do it right, then you might as well just kind of not do it at all, sadly.
And this happens also when we move to a new country, right? Like if we think about the culture differences, when we move to, like when I moved, for example, from Europe to India, and I lived there 1.5 years, I went through this, right? I went through this, and I saw a lot of other expats going through the same. It's just a huge change that happens, and it takes time. Like it took me around 3 months to get used to it, right? But then I didn't want to leave. So that's also this thing that it's just a human emotional reaction to change. And we as ABM and RevOps specialists, we need to be aware of this, right? We cannot just go in and say, okay, guys, now we are changing everything. It needs to be step by step. My question to you, though, is in a situation where there is a lot of economical changes and there is a lot of pressure on both marketeers and sales in changing their go-to-market, um, how do you think we could actually have this human approach to changing completely the go-to market, right? Without putting that much pressure on the stakeholders that actually will benefit at the end of the day of that change.
Sure. So I think there is always time to do things properly, and I think if the situations where there is no time to do things properly have been entirely fabricated by ourselves. So the first point back to you is, okay, why is it so hasty? Like, what's gone on there? But I think as well, the best thing you can do for your teams during any kind of change projects is to consult them and to ensure that they're involved from early on. So if you're making a change such as ABM, where that involves, your head of sales, your head of SDR, marketing head, the team under the marketing head as well, and everyone adjacent, you need to make sure that you're speaking to those people at some point. So I think when it comes to go-to-market strategy, you can't do it chaotically, right? You need to give yourself the time to do it properly. So yeah, I don't necessarily buy the whole, well, we didn't have time to do it properly thing, because you probably did. You probably just didn't plan it well enough. But that's what we're here to do, right? We're here to talk about what things go wrong so that people can plan it properly. So maybe this will help. Right, I've done my bit for humanity now, so let's talk about the ABM itself. So common misconceptions. Romeo, what's the biggest misconception that you have to correct? Maybe in your own thinking as well, but just in general.
The biggest misconception that sales guys try to find shortcuts all the time. Maybe is that true?
Salespeople are present. We love you dearly, but you do that.
Yeah.
You do that a lot. I think my biggest one, and okay, so I worked in a company where they had ABM headcount. Like they actually had a person responsible for ABM, but they targeted him on leads. And at the time, I didn't know what it was. Like I didn't know what ABM was at all. So it's like, oh, it's a marketing thing. It's a campaign that they're running. Okay, great. So I'll just report on it. Fine. Didn't look too far into it. And yeah, thinking back to it now, like poor guy, first of all. And second of all, that wasn't really what ABM is. Like it's not just about the leads, right? I've seen some wild things being called ABM. Like I've seen a static list of like dream accounts that the SDRs would target without any kind of marketing support or data or science behind it being called ABM. I've seen ABM setups that have been done years ago and they're kind of just running and gathering dust in the process, and they're not necessarily right anymore. Nothing's necessarily okay about them, but you know, it's been set up once, the project's done, tick.
They're just scary.
Yeah. The pièce de résistance for me is the kind of we'll get loads of leads straight away misconception. And we hear this quite a lot at N.Rich with our product, because obviously we sell an ABM platform to our clients, and they think, okay, we're going to buy this, we're going to finish the project, and we're just going to bathe in all these leads and all the money that's coming out of it. So that's not the case either. So it's a little bit of a longer process, and it generally like ramps up as it goes along. So it's a trickle, not a waterfall, I'd say. The combination of like misconceptions, the fear, the lack of change management, the lack of investments as well into ABM result in ABM programs, but in name only. So high quality needs again. What it can be is this really powerful engine for demand generation and for revenue. What it looks like in most companies is more like the little dog on the right hand side there. Is just a little bit like meh. But again, we're here to correct a lot of this stuff. So let's hope we can course correct as we go along. So 5 common pitfalls of ABM for me. So we don't understand what it is. We set ourselves the wrong KPIs, set it and forget it. So talking about like projects that have been done years ago and just allowed to run. No involvement from sales team, and we underestimate the size of the project. So number 5 is where I'm going to unleash all of my N.Rich for N.Rich trauma on you guys, but let's go through them one by one and see what we can make of them. So we don't understand what it is. ABM is one of those terms that is a bit of a buzzword and it's shrouded in mystery. And that's mainly like our fault as well as RevOps and as marketeers. We don't demystify things enough for our teams, I think. And I'll go into it in a bit more detail when we talk about the lack of sales involvement. But as a general rule, in most companies I've seen, ABM is just a term, no science behind it, no data evaluations happening, nothing like that. So typically there'll be like a static list of target accounts in the CRM, and then the SDRs are just kind of let loose on it. Like, okay, go do the thing. And then marketing also runs like tofu campaigns, done, right? Tick, everything's okay. We've already talked a little bit about this kind of cultural and mind shift change. So we're taking people from the us versus them, so sales versus marketing, to us and them, sales and marketing. And to do that, there is a lot of work to be done, first of all, to actually fix the relationships between the sales and marketing teams, right? Because in a lot of companies that I've seen, it's like it's a cat and dog scenario where they're just constantly fighting. And once you undo that and bring them all into the same level playing field where none of them is above the other and both of them are playing nice, that's kind of where the magic of it happens. But at the beyond like the relationships, beyond the CRM setup, and beyond like the technical nitty gritty of it, I think the best way to understand ABM is to understand what it will do for your company specifically. So as an organization, we want to change to an ABM go-to-market strategy. What's our overall goal with that change? What's the strategy? Like, how are we going to get to the top, to the peak of that summit? And then what are the milestones that we should see along the way? A lot of the time I see people implementing ABM because it's the thing to do. And it's not necessarily right for everyone. Not all companies will be in the right stages to do this kind of stuff. But if you think it's right, then keep aligning on the goals, on the strategy, the milestones, everything with your team. And speaking of change management, this is the best way to introduce people to it all early, because if people feel like they're involved in the goal setting and then the strategy setting, they will go through that lovely Kubler-Ross curve a lot quicker, because guess what? They've participated and they've contributed to the change that's being done to them. Another point. So we might have seen the terms like ABX or ABS as well floating around. So ABX is like account-based everything, X standing for sales and marketing, right? And then ABS is account-based selling. So what I would say is that if ABM is a new concept to your business, if nobody understands what it is, and if people genuinely are feeling confused, depressed, and angry about it, use the term ABX instead. The term doesn't matter. The strategy does matter. So don't hold on to the word, hold on to the feeling that the word evokes in your team, right? So take the focus away from just marketing. So shift the focus from ABM being just a marketing thing to something that sales and marketing do together. And it will generally help. It will aid the understanding of it. Pitfall number 2, and another really high quality meme. So we set ourselves the wrong KPIs. Romeo, can you tell like my state of mind has been deteriorating with these memes as I went along, because I feel like they're getting worse. Right, KPIs. In general, and I'm going to go back on everything I've ever said in my career, right? In general, revenue is the North Star metric for organizations. So that's the thing that you focus on no matter what. In ABM, because of the time it takes for you to get from the campaign launch to the point of revenue, you cannot focus on just that. And a lot of companies do, and they don't see the return. They don't see that ROI within sort of the first quarter of doing it. And the ABM program just gets scrapped, which is a sad thing, because they do take a long time to ramp up. They take a long time to implement. So the focus being on revenue straight away from day one is completely detrimental to it. Depending on your sales cycles, depending on how long it takes you to get there, it could take up to 9 months in some cases that I've seen to actually get to the first point of sale, right? To get to the first true ABM account to actually convert. Again, depends on your organizational maturity. Maybe you were doing something similar before and you just kind of tipped them over the edge with ABM. But as a rule of thumb, it takes a while to get from campaign launch to revenue. And it's important to keep that in mind as you're starting this, because you're not going to see results straight away. And therefore, measuring revenue straight away and driving all of your marketing team silly with trying to generate this revenue like on day one is not going to get you the best results out of them.
And what do you think, Anastasia, like most of the times, if you go back to that slide, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have these 4 to 9 months when after you launch and you start to do some engagements. When do you guys think that they stop? When, I don't know, the sales guys got demotivated, they don't see results when it comes to the ads impressions, or I don't know, the performance of the ads. the leads are not just engaging with the content, or when is that moment? Like, I'm just trying to figure out the critical events that can be maybe um mm, actually we could address it beforehand, that okay, these are the critical events, and these are the moments in your whole ABM implementation and launch campaign launch that we should really uh, take care of, so that we don't abandon it.
Yeah, I think at the launch of it, in general, the mood will be high, right? Like everyone wants to try the new shiny
Yeah.
thing, and as long as not many people are in the denial stages, then in general the team will be on board. I think I'll come to it in a few slides time, but there is a way of doing review cycles with ABM, and sort of the key things that you can look at that will really help with this. But I think you're right. There are specific things that you should be looking out for throughout the course of it that would be kind of early indicators of things going completely wrong that you just need to course correct straight away. Give me a moment. It will come up in a couple of slides' time.
Okay.
In terms of timelines, though, just really quickly on this. So if we're saying that the whole shebang will take us 4 to 9 months, it doesn't mean that we wait 4 to 9 months to kind of see any kind of results. What we do in these cases is that we change the leading indicators. So we change our KPIs from, the set in stone North Star type things to other indicators along the way that we can have a look at. So in month 1, I think you'll start seeing your ICP accounts engaging with your content. In month 2, your SDRs will start converting the hottest accounts. So you might see a better outbound conversion on the accounts that marketing have influenced as well. And then sort of month 4 to 9, there's the ROI and pipeline and sort of any kind of revenue indicators as well. Now to the stuff that we're talking about. So what kind of lead indicators can we look at which stage? So as a first step, if you're picking KPIs, you need to define your buyer journey. So you need to figure out like what are the different stages that this buyer will go through, and therefore what kind of different insights can we take from them. So this is taken from the N.Rich for N.Rich case, actually. So this is the stuff that we're using ourselves. So we're using cold and market and engaged and hot stages. And you can see on the screen there, like the definitions for each of them. Effectively, it's going from they don't know anything about us and they don't have any intent to buy, all the way through to they're actively researching our solution, they're in market. Based on this stage, you can then assign a particular KPI. So don't do it where you've got your KPIs and then you try to map them back. Do it properly, define buyer journey, and then assign the KPIs per stage. So for cold and in-market accounts, we are mainly looking at things like ad engagement, and then also the kind of percentage penetration into account base. So what we're looking at is, okay, we know that these are all of our cold ICP accounts. How many of them have we been able to reach with advertisements? So it's a very like a marketing specific thing, but as a leading indicator, above all else, I think it's perfect. Like that's all you need before you know how well your campaign will perform. Then we get down to the engaged and hot stages, and here you can look at like returning website visits, visits to high intent pages, outbound conversion, all that kind of stuff. And then obviously they land into a salesperson's calendar, and here we're in much more familiar waters. So we've got our number of form fills, number of sales accepted leads, and blah blah blah, all of the kind of RevOpsy buzz term KPIs there. But yeah, so to answer your previous question, define the buyer journey first, figure out what the KPIs would be for that journey, and those KPIs are your indicators, like your red flags along the way. So So for example, if you started doing ABM and you can see that there's a lot happening in the cold and in-market account stages, but then you've got nothing in engaged and you've got nothing in hot stages, you can tell that something's going wrong. So maybe your ad engagement is high, but it's not actually driving the traffic to your website. So you're not positioning yourself well enough. Do you know, stuff like that. But yeah, starts with a good buyer journey map, and it's not exciting. I'm very sorry about that, but you know, you got to do it. You have to do this stuff. The other thing as well, so we are very used to this very binary inbound versus outbound type thinking. And in account-based marketing, because sales and marketing will work on stuff together, this kind of thinking just doesn't work. Like, it's officially, I declare it dead in the world of ABM. So what can we do instead? So again, this is something I'm doing in my setup right now, but effectively what I'm proposing is that we add an extra layer on top. So 2 examples. So first example, marketing targets an account with ads, drives them to the website, sales engages with that very same account with kind of outreach like email or LinkedIn, whatever, or cold calling if you're into that. But then the lead converts through a form fill. In the old world, this would cause a fight, right? Because sales will be like, well, I spoke to them, and marketing will be like, well, actually, they filled in the form, so go away. However, if we add an extra layer on top, we can say that this is an inbound lead because they converted through a website form, but they're also sales influenced. Therefore, we can also credit the SDR or the 360 AE or whoever spoke to this contact. Or kind of the flip side of that. So sales started the conversation, they targeted the account with outreach, drove them to the website, but then marketing also did work in retargeting the website visits, so of positioning relevant ads, and then leads finally converts by replying to sales. In the old world, marketing would not get any credit for this lead whatsoever because we see the sales activity in the CRM very clearly. Most setups don't have any kind of marketing activity tracking. So, it would have just been an outbound lead. With this added layer, we can say, okay, outbound lead because they spoke to sales, but marketing influence. So you can see kind of it adds an extra layer of complexity to it, but it also makes this kind of really black and white static world a little bit more gray. And I'm quite into this. I'm trialing this right now. I'll let you know how it goes. But
I think it's a lot about trust also, right? Because when it comes to sales guys, I know because I did a lot of sales, and before doing my agency I was doing sales. And I think what we need sometime is more credit, right? Like we need, and we want all the credit. We want to have all the attribution to the sales guys that we did it all, right? So in a ABM approach, it's where no, we are one team, marketing and sales, and maybe even customer success. If we do some upsell campaigns, we are all in one team, and there is no more inbound, outbound. There is only revenue at the end of the day. This is what we care about in the company, and doesn't matter if they are marketing influenced, sales influenced. They are in our targeted account list. We are creating programs for them, and that's the main focus, right? So this whole boardroom discussions where we are, okay, how much revenue did marketing bring, how much revenue sales bring, it's obsolete, and I hope it will be obsolete with time, because with RevOps and with ABM, we need to focus on the North Star of revenue and not look all the time at, attribution of me. I was the one who bring this revenue, not you, but me. Yeah. So
yeah, definitely. I think there is a reason to look at it from kind of the sales generated versus marketing generated perspective, because ultimately you do need to see the team performance, right? And you need to see where your GTM falls down. So is our sales outbound very weak, or is it the marketing part of it that's not working well? So in that sense, I understand it. I don't support it, but social anthropology thinking, it makes sense in the context of where it happens. But yeah, you're right. Within ABM, it's completely obsolete because it just doesn't work. Like, there is no such thing as pure outbound in ABM, and there's no such
And I
thing
think
as
it
pure
just,
inbound.
yeah, and I think it just slows us down at the end of the day. Like, rather than focusing on bringing value to the client, we are actually doing all these measurements and all this for figuring out who was the influencer, right? Marketing or sales, when it should be one team at the end of the day. But yeah, that's something ahead of us, and many organizations will change, and they realize that they need to change from this silo way of thinking. But
Yeah, definitely. Okay, we're on to 3. So the set it and forget it thing. So I hope your ABM programs won't look like this chair, but I think they will end up looking like this chair after some time. And this is just down to some natural decay things, so things change. But there's also a few other things in play. So first thing to address is that you know how people always say, like, your CRM is a product, not a project. ABM is a strategy. It's not a project. So it's not something that you do once and then it's just done. It's something that you do and then do and do and do over and over again. So it has to keep getting adjusted. The other thing at play here right now is that our ICPs are not static. So in tech specifically, the economic shifts and changes will massively affect how your ICP behaves. And so you need to be able to adapt your strategy and your messaging and your targeting as well to it. If you don't do it, you kind of are in a situation with that chair where it doesn't quite work, but it looks right if you squint. And then the other thing as well, so this is quite interesting about ABM specifically, but because it's reliant on both sides of the team rather than just on sales or just on marketing, turnover and skill level in the sales team and in the marketing team will have more of an effect on your go-to-market strategy. So typically, if you do like a linear lead gen where marketing does a thing, gives it to sales, sales do their own thing, you can mitigate for risk for people leaving within the sales team who are not very good at that, are good at converting leads. You can mitigate the risk of the leads falling over by the sales manager stepping in or someone else. But if the teams are very closely aligned, one weak link that just does something completely wild and out of the blue in one of the teams can change things and can make an effect on the revenue that we're generating from these programs and all of these kind of things. So here is what I was alluding to earlier. So this review cycle. So how do we actually operationalize the constant looking back on what we've achieved? And in effect, it is very simple. And I believe that a lot of things should be a lot simpler. So here we go. On a monthly basis, I would have a look at the running of specific campaigns, and I would have a look at what those campaigns are generating. So maybe in terms of ROI, so in terms of like the pipeline generated in revenue, maybe in terms of just pure, leading indicators. So how are these campaigns performing? Then we do a tweak, we launch it again, and on a monthly basis, we review and keep going with it. On a quarterly basis, I would really recommend that everyone reviews their ICP and sales velocity metrics. So a lot of the times we start with our ICP with an assumption, right? So we once sold to BMW, therefore our ICP is BMW. But actually what you need to have a look at is, what are all the other deals around this one big one? What are the customers that stay the longest? So keep on a quarterly basis, keep assessing your ICP, make sure that it still fits, make sure that the market conditions are right to sell to your ACP, and make any changes there. On the quarterly basis as well, I would assess the campaign ROI like in earnest, and have a wider conversation around it. So not just the leading indicators, but actually in real terms, what has this generated for us? Because ad engagement is nice until you are 4 months in and that's all you have to show for it. So those really quite frank conversations can happen on a quarterly basis. And then there's also steps to tweak the ICP and retargeting. You can tweak the process on a quarterly basis, and kind of just start again quarter to quarter. The reason that I split them up into monthly and quarterly is that I think ICP reviews are too, they're big. And if you do them monthly, you are going to have to keep changing all of your campaign setup, and therefore you're not going to see any results from it at all. Tweaking processes is an absolute bastard of a project at the best of times, let alone when there's 2 different teams involved and many, many different moving pieces. So again, review quarterly and let these processes and let these changes bed in before the next review cycle. What's next? Sales teams are not part of the process. This is a real life footage of a salesperson being left out of an ABM program. I took it just myself just last night, as you can tell. So with let's talk about that word ABM for a minute again. So if we position ABM as just a marketing thing, if we don't involve sales, if we don't speak to them about what they need or what they how they want to work with the marketing team, they will see ABM as just a marketing campaign, and they will focus on their own lead generation first. And here's the funny thing. So if there was a race between sales and marketing on generating leads, sales will win. They will win every time because they're closer to the prospect, right? And they're closer literally by way of proximity. Everyone is just a phone call away from the next prospect. So if that's a thing, if we're not involving sales team, if we're not working as a collective, then it will be a race and sales will win and ABM will be scrapped. Because sales are getting on fine by themselves. Like why do we need marketing support and all of this investment? So cultural thing, big change. Talked about the Kubler-Ross curve. I'm going to keep saying this until you guys actually kind of remember it for the rest of the life. But there will naturally be a lot of hesitation and fear. And I think what I want to talk about first is how we actually talk to our colleagues about ABM. So how we explained it to them, because your typical SDR will not be aware of what this new project is and what they're being asked to do, right? Come on, switch. So this is a summary. This is how I explain ABM to colleagues that don't necessarily understand it. So ABM projects and working in this account-based way with marketing alignment and with all of the data that you need is the difference between ringing through the yellow pages to find a good fit account. So literally going through your whole list of everything you've got and finding that one person who will speak to you, and walking into a room of people who are already kind of half-baked, like ready to buy.
Yeah, this is brilliant. And what salesperson would not want that, right? To just go into the room with people who are, prepared and they already know what is this company about. They already know they have the need, right? And now it's all about clarifying few things. So I believe that sales becomes here more like a facilitator, right? Not necessarily this uh, Wall Street type of Wolf of Wall Street sales, right? Because they're already convinced, they have the intent, they have the actual they engaged with your content, so that you can just clarify a few things and get the information from the subject matter experts, um, and bring it to that buyer. So that's why I believe the whole profession of sales will change because of this, right? Because we can go out and get the information, get the feedback. We can go to communities. There are so many places to, validate that my decision going with N.Rich is the one that I need to have. So when I go in a room with sales folks, I just need to know details. I have some use cases that I want to validate with the team, and the sales guy, if they are not subject matter experts, they know where to gather this information from, and that's it, right? Don't need to convince that, ooh, we are this and we are that. So yeah.
Yeah. But I think, like, beyond that, I think it'll be such a nice change of pace as well for salespeople. Like, when ABM truly works, salespeople stop being kind of the pestering LinkedIn presence in someone's DMs, right? They stop having to chase down prospects and arm wrestle them into just taking the demo, because the prospect's already aware of who you are. So in theory, it should be like a little bit easier to talk to them, right? Because they're already aware of you. So
Yeah.
yeah, it changes then from sales team as the chasey kind of Wolf of Wall Street kind of environment to a sales team of subject matter experts who can actually get technical with the prospect and talk to them. So yeah, I think it's a nice world, and I wish for us all to live in it one day. The other way as well to kind of make sure that your sales team understand ABM is with cookies. I like food-based metaphors. So there's one on the screen here. I'm not going to go through it because I feel like we understand ABM by now. So if you want to grab a screenshot or on the slides after the webinar when they're released, please go ahead. It's a really lovely summary, and it has cookies. Like, what can you not like about that? All this stuff. So you've done the hard work. You've explained what ABM is. Your sales and marketing team are ready to work together. The buy-in is important, but I think the visibility is important to get right here as well. So what do I mean by visibility? So it's this whole thing about what are marketing actually doing to help us? Like, what have they done? What has marketing done for me ever? So marketing teams need to be able to show sales that their wins, like the close one deal, the pipeline conversions, are heavily supported by marketing campaigns. And it's not about saying like, you are nothing without us. It's not that. It's more, look at how we got here together. So again, if you have done the hard work and you've done change management and you've eliminated the relationship problems between sales and marketing before you launch this stuff, the visibility piece will be eagerly anticipated. It very much starts with process alignment. So on the right here, what you can see is our ABM stages and our SDR approach to each of those stages as well. Very much summarized because, business critical information, but effectively you can see what I'm getting at. So make sure that for every stage in the process, there is alignment, and make sure that for every stage of the process, there is a KPI, and make sure people are actually, recognized for the work they do. So if an SDR converts, if an SDR actually influenced an inbound lead, make sure that their name is on it, because there's no better way to demotivate someone, right? With visibility, so let's just roll back and talk about the very exciting reports for a second. So on the screen are some ideas of what you can report on. So I'll talk to you about my kind of most favorite ones. So where we talk about this visibility of what has marketing done for conversion, we can talk about pre-opportunity marketing influenced accounts. So pre-opportunity just means that marketing has reached this account before it became a deal. And marketing influence means that they've done something on it, right? So if you can show that kind of data to your sales team, and if your sales team then go into the detail and go, oh, okay, this is actually an account that was really easy to convert, they start to connect the dots. It's that human element again of show each of the team the other's accomplishments, give them visibility of everything that's happening and be really transparent about it as well. Like, it's not just for the board reports, it's for everyone to see how their efforts are shaping up. But have a think about what your visibility thing will be and how you will represent it, how you will review that with a team. But bring as much human into it as possible. So not just about the data and, okay, we've generated X amount of pipeline, but this particular person has done really well, or this particular person has done really well. Like that's really important. Encouragement in these kind of big changes, it will be massive for everyone.
And I think Anastasia, Sarah's question here, right? Like how do you measure the revenue linked to those gray leads? Yeah, because that's what they are struggling with.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe what you're presented here is really good. Another answer to that was something I heard, what we were doing, and I heard it also from the folks at Snowflake. Mm, they just divide the non ABM influenced accounts and ABM influenced accounts. And how you do that is just, you have a targeted account list with all your that you engage in all your ABM campaigns, and the rest of the accounts that you are engaging with inbound marketing, you name it, right? So at the end of the day, you can look at the revenue and you can see, okay, is the revenue of all the companies that I touched with ABM different than the rest, right? And it's simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it needs time. You can't. It's really hard to do it on real time when you have a long sales cycle. But at the end of the day, this is where all this engagement, ad penetration, all the activities that you did with those accounts will show the results. Is it really influencing the revenue or not really, right? So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that's mm, a way to do it. I don't know if you have any other answer to that.
No, I think you're 100% right. I think so. Where we talked about going into the grey territory, the most difficult part about this is determine the customer acquisition cost on these kind of accounts. It is difficult because you have to blend costs from different departments, right? So it's not a pure marketing CAC and it's not a pure sales CAC, it's somewhere in between. So that bit does need a lot of working out. But in general, there is nothing stopping you from saying, this is marketing influenced pipeline and this is purely sales influenced pipeline. So there was no marketing influence on it at all. We talk about gray leads to break that weird dichotomy, right, between sales and marketing. We talk about gray areas because we need to bring the two teams together and we need to make sure that they work together nicely. In terms of reporting, it doesn't have to be like that. In terms of reporting, you can still show, okay, these are the accounts that marketing touched, but sales haven't, and they still converted, and vice versa on the sales side as well. Okay, reporting done. Now for my trauma. So the size of the project in ABM. Look, N.Rich is an ABM company. We deal in marketing campaigns. We deal with intent data. We're very data driven. And we didn't have an ABM program. I joined in March, and that was one of my first questions, actually. I was like, oh, do you guys? No, we don't. Okay, weird. So we thought we'd do it. It started very flippant, like, oh, we should really use our own tools and we should like drink our own champagne, I think the term was. But it turned out an enormous project, and it's really given us a lot of insight into how like our customers are feeling about all this. So it's been actually really rewarding in many ways, but also, oh my God. Yeah, it's been a ride. So we thought it would be really like point A to point B, decide to do it, done. what actually ended up happening is that we spent almost a month on the definitions of things. So we had to agree on our ICP. And for context, we were in agreement about our ICP until we started talking about it. So we had a written down definition. We had a very established, very successful sales team that were working on ICP. Everything was in place until someone said, let's agree on ICP. And then it just all went downhill. So we decided that we don't agree on it. We've changed it. Then we worked on our account tiers. So we had like a bunch of ICP accounts, and then we went, okay, so these are the top priority. These are tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Then we decided that we don't agree on that at all. So we changed it again. So there was a lot of work to do even before we got to the kind of the lovely coloring in part of, creating the content and creating the campaigns. The definitions took the longest. So take that away from this webinar and give yourself ample time to decide on things, because people will fight, and they will fight a lot about things that you thought were just common sense. One thing we did get right, though, is making sure that everyone was in the room where these conversations happened. So we've got a relatively small leadership team. It's the head of marketing, head of SDR, head of sales on the kind of the AE side. And then there is me, who is RevOps and CRM admin in one person. Those are just two of my multiple personalities that come out at work. I can't underline enough how important it is to get everyone in that room straight away, because if I went to my head of marketing, Yulia, and we decided to do the ABM thing, we planned everything, and then we went to sales to talk about it, we would have been rolled back months, because sales had a lot of input in terms of like the process that the SDRs will follow, the ICP definitions, the tiers, the approaches, all that kind of stuff. You cannot handle this project in a kind of in one departmental bubble. It has to go across the board, and it will feel like a kind of like a too many cooks in one kitchen kind of scenario at times. But honestly, it's better than not having enough people on board at this stage. C-suite will be one of the weird ones to get involved. So we're quite lucky. Marcus, our CEO, is very kind of hands-on with this kind of stuff, and he does like to participate in projects. But let's talk about that timeline as well, right? If your C-suite doesn't understand how long things take, the heavy lifting that's involved with getting ABM off the ground and all of those kind of bits and pieces around it, they will start kicking off a lot earlier than you guys will be able to generate any kind of returns from ABM. So important to get them involved, important that they agree to do it and understand why it's important to switch strategies. With the tool stack side of things, so you can get a massively unfair advantage here. So if your tool stack is customizable and agile, if your tool stack has a solid integration between all the different bits and bobs, you are ahead of so many other different companies that don't. We ourselves use HubSpot as our CRM because it's my one and only true love. Professionally, I am married. But HubSpot as our CRM, and then we obviously use N.Rich as our ABM platform because it would be stupid not to. But effectively, this is how it works for us. So N.Rich and HubSpot have a solid integration. N.Rich was, I believe, built for HubSpot back in the day, but we've taken on other CRMs now as well. But that N.Rich to HubSpot pool is like the first wife, the original marriage, the strongest one. So N.Rich pulls ICP accounts from HubSpot. So all of our data lives in HubSpot, and we push that into N.Rich for marketing, for advertisement, for all that kind of good stuff. Then N.Rich pushes back data about intent signals, so first party and third party, data like ad engagement, website visits, which adverts the prospect has seen, all that kind of stuff. So all of that information goes in two directions. So accounts one way, all of the other info the other way. Then what we've got is HubSpot workflows, which kind of prioritize things for SDRs, assign engaged and hot accounts to SDRs, basically like all the heavy lifting that back in the day would have been done by a marketing operations person just frantically assigning leads. This is done by via automation via HubSpot. The other thing that I'm setting up as well, which is going to come in really useful, is like on the left-hand side of all of our account records, we're going to have like a little summary of all of the ABM stuff that's taken place in this account. So like, you know, which ads they've seen, just basically all of the info that N.Rich pushes, but like in a lovely little summarized section of its own in HubSpot. And then obviously we're going to have alerts for SDRs when their accounts become engaged. That's an interesting one because it's not been done before. Like obviously we've used intent data quite extensively at N.Rich for many years, but always manually. And I think me introducing a little engagement alert will be quite nice. It will be quite nice for people. I like to look after SDRs like that. And then when it comes to like reporting and everything, HubSpot will act as our one source of truth, our one and only. We've also got analytics dashboards in N.Rich, but the key with all of this is that at any given moment, if the strategy changes, I can go in and change things in my tool stack. I can tweak the HubSpot workflows. I can, you know, adjust the segments within N.Rich. I can do all of these things without, you know, tons of hours of, you know, of that I need to invest into it. Very important. If you want to run an ABM campaign, you need to make sure that your tools allow you to run it in a very agile way and to allow you to respond to changes in the market, changes in strategy, changes in team setup. If they don't, you will end up spending more time on it than you need to. I have spoken for a very long time now, so we're coming to the end. So in summary, huge undertaking, big cultural shift. Take a screenshot of that Kubler-Ross curve and show it to all your friends. It will come in very helpful. But in general, just treat ABM with the care and consideration that it deserves, because it's massive, but it's beautiful when it works well. Before you set the program live, educate your team, make sure it's in terms that they understand, don't alienate them with buzzwords. Set yourself the right KPIs, because otherwise your ABM campaign will just get cancelled. Treat it again as a strategy, not as a project. So look back at those review cycles, look back at how you can operationalize review cadences and take the steps to actually catch the KPIs turning down, or all of those kind of red flags early on. Sales on board from day one, can't stress this enough. They need to be in the room where these decisions take place, and pick your tools wisely. I think that is it from me. Oh no, actually, some links, useful links. So if you want to learn more, so first of all, Yulia, our head of marketing, is actually sharing stories and updates from our ABM implementation in real time on LinkedIn. So give her a follow. It's at the point now, like when I say real time, I mean yesterday I'll say something stupid in the meeting. Tomorrow she's writing about it on LinkedIn. So it is really, really that quick. And the updates that she writes are just fantastic. We've got the Driving Demand podcast as well with Adam Holmgreen. So that's a great source of all of the different kinds of ABM knowledge. So if you really want to dive down into it, that's the place to be. N.Rich blog, obviously I can't not promote ourselves, but loads of useful articles, loads of advice, loads of like tool stack recommendations, like anything you might need is over there. And then I'm like Romeo, I'm not just paying you guys lip service here, but your blog is amazing. Where it comes to like ABM through the eyes of RevOps, or ABM as a very practical thing, I've never seen anything better. So guys, check it out. It's a very good source of resources as well.
Well, Anastasia, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for this. We had one question quickly from Łukasz, just to put him on here. So the question is mainly about the qualitative metrics in ABM compared to the quantitative. So any kind of thoughts on that, or any kind of suggestions what that could be, and how do you guys do use it if you do?
Hmm. I think that's a really great question, first of all. So, qualitative comes into it by way of customer feedback on various different stages. So, a nice way of doing it that I've seen is by collecting surveys after a particular stage in the customer journey has been reached. So, after their closed one, we can ask them like, how did you find that? Did you find our salesperson good? Did they reach out at the right times? All those kind of things would really help. Um, but I think if you're just implementing ABM, you will not have as much qualitative stuff to go back to as you will the quantitative stuff. So qualitative for me comes a little bit later in the process when the program is a little bit more mature. Not to disregard it completely, but it does the quantitative leads here in a very big way. But the customer feedback, the experience with the process, it's invaluable as well. One thing I would keep in mind though is not everyone remembers all of their interaction with a company. They will only remember the big stuff. So if you've really pissed them off, they will remember and they will tell you. Or if you've really blown their socks off, they will also remember and they will also tell you. But basing your whole campaign decision based on kind of people's really extreme feelings is not going to get the kind of results that you might expect.
In our case, we are really keen on finding out the attribution. So our forms on our homepage and all of our service pages, it has this "Where did you hear about us?" required.
Mm,
So basically, if you don't fill in that, then you cannot book a call, let's say, with us. And we made this decision because we we really wanted to figure out what are those actual activities or engagements, or what does that customer tell us. And it's very important not to have it as a drop down menu with some options, just open text, open field texts, put
mm,
in whatever you want. And then we would go in and we would actually categorize those responses to different kind of GTMs, right? That way, that's a very important attribution manner. Is something that many people talk about. Chris Walker is a big advocate of that, from Revenue Labs agency. So that's one thing. The other one is depends on how big are the accounts. So if you do one-to-one ABM, it's like strategic ABM, uh, where you are targeting only one company, right? Like the example of we had one client which wanted to target only Volvo, right? Volvo has 63 plants in Europe, right? You have Volvo trucks, you have Volvo car, you have Volvo bus. You can actually take a use case from one plant and do a webinar only for the Volvo R&D engineers on how they implemented a particular solution in plant X in Poland, and you want to show it to the guys in Germany or in Austria or whatever. So it all depends on how big is your account and what you want to do. If you do programmatic, I would say you have the quantitative metrics. That's what you need to to actually focus on. If you do strategic, then obviously there is more qualitative metrics, like as you said, customer feedback and other kind of interviews on use cases, on subject matter expertise, on actual projects that they are doing currently, like what are those projects that they are running, and where can you help with those projects. These are all information that you can only find out through customer feedback. But again, your lifetime value needs to be very big, right? Like your total contract value needs to be big for you to justify that level of in-depth research, right? And obviously, you need to have a huge buy-in from your board and C-suite to actually go that deep, right? So I'm sorry to say, but I know everybody hates the answer. It all depends, but in this case, this is the situation. Like, how big is that account? So yeah, um, thanks a lot, Anastasia. Sorry, guys, if we were late. I had some connection issues initially, um, but I hope this ABM RevOps this whole webinar helps you start your pilot project. Reach out to the guys from N.Rich. Reach out to Anastasia if you have more question about this, because they have a lot of knowledge, and not only knowledge on how they run it for themselves, but they see a lot of ABM campaigns running with other companies. So most probably there is some kind of use case, some kind of industry that they work with, which is similar to yours. So they can give you some kind of tips on how to get started. So if you have any RevOps, HubSpot, and you want to bring all this into a tech system, then reach out to us, to me, Shemek, Arek, Jakub, um, and obviously even to HubSpot, because HubSpot is going into that direction of being the tool that is ABM ready, right? So again, thanks a lot. Thanks, Anastasia, for all
Thanks
this,
for
and
having
greetings to all the folks in Manchester.
me. Thanks.
Take care. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye bye.